Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bob Lee. I am program coordinator for the Putnam Peninsula Historical Society. And I got to tell you, I'm very, very excited about the presentation you're about to see. Because Lisa, in our history, it's unique, probably in Putnam County's history, as far as programs go. So a little bit of a brief backstory. My wife and I, this past summer, we're going over the Memorial Bridge. And my wife, Karen, she looks over and she says, "Is that a pirate ship moored over there like a city dock?" And I look and I said, "Wow, I don't know. It's got this big black hull on it, and a single mast." Anyway, I went down there to the pier later on and walked up to it. Nobody was there. Next day, I read the Palaca Daily News, and lo and behold, there's a front page story about the AmaraZee, and in it, I see Mark Rinaman, who I did not know at that time. I saw Lisa Rinaman, who I knew very well. And I said, aha, one thing leads to another, and here they are today. And so just a little bit about their background. And Lisa Rinaman, by the way, Lisa has been here before. She was here earlier with Jessica Finch and their role as St. John's River Keepers. But Lisa Rinaman is the St. John's River Keeper based out of Jacksonville, and connected with Mark and the AmaraZee in 2002. I believe that's where your romance began and ultimately your wedding, right? Okay. And while working for the city of Jacksonville, she helps secure support and birthing space for the ship's first two visits to Jacksonville. Now she is connecting community science and river enthusiasts through her work and river tours on the AmaraZee. And Captain Mark Rinaman is a retired colonel after serving 30 years in the Florida National Guard and the Army Reserves. He has served as president of the National Caravan Stage Company for more than 30 years. He is also a chemical engineer with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And Mark and Lisa live in Jacksonville and are raising their two sons in historic Springfield on the St. Johns River. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to them.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's so good to see some familiar faces as well as new faces as we talk about this wonderful project that I've been blessed to be part of. As Bob mentioned, I met Mark when I moved to Jacksonville. In 1997 is when I actually discovered Jacksonville. I moved from Arkansas, and I really fell in love with Florida first. I fell in love with the spring second, and I fell in love with the St. Johns River third in that order. And I really wanted to find a place in Florida that had rich history, it had rich culture, and it had all these beautiful natural amenities. And that's how I landed in Northeast Florida. We are so fortunate to have such a great history as y'all celebrate with the work that you do, as well as to have these waterways running through the heart of our communities. Whether it's Lake Crescent, the St. John's, it's all connected, and these waterways connect us. And they actually connected me when I met Mark. I think our very first date was we went on a paddling group, and we paddled into a moonbeam on 6 Mile Creek. We used to go out for sunset cruises, and we got to actually work with the former owners of the AmaraZee many years ago when he brought him to town. His father was actually the first person that took me to Silver Glen, the first person that took me to Blair's Jungle Den. We stayed the weekend there when it was still here, and actually all the way up to Sanford. So just really appreciate to marry into the Floridian family that introduced me to all these waterways, and excited to share this new adventure with you all tonight that I believe will bring us all together, all of us river lovers, all of us history lovers, in a way that can celebrate the unique communities along the St. Johns River and all of its lakes, and also all the things that make our communities special, whether it's the great food we have, our artists, our personalities, and all those things. And of course, with the St. Johns River Keeper, it gives us a venue to bring together science and research as well. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about setting the stage, but I do want to turn it over to the captain because he's the one that's made this all happen. I'm just the support crew, but I'm happy to be here in support today. But William Bartram he really knew the magic that is the Northeast Florida and the St. John's. And the Bartram Trail Society has really made Bartram's travel so accessible for us all. And so it's really building into that history that connects us. And of course, everyone in this part of the watershed understand that connectivity from a tourism standpoint. This was the first place a lot of people got to come in and see the magic that is Florida in our waterways. They would come to Jacksonville and they'd come to Palatka. They would come through the Ocklawaha and really visit and see all the magic that Bartram wrote about and that we all have the benefit of living. It also connects us religiously with the St. John's River churches that were built by the Episcopalian Church. The bishop would actually go to all these river churches by the river. That's how he connected with all of the members of his church. And there's a new book that's been recently written the last couple of years celebrating all the river churches and that great river history. From a scientific perspective, we know the more we get out on the St. John's River, the more research, the more data, the more that we connect with people that live and breathe and work and play on the St. John's, the better that we can do working together to protect the St. John's River. We launched the Save Our Rivers Grasses campaign in 2023, and we actually survey 3 times a year an 80-mile stretch of the St. John's. We knew that would give us more data, it would give us more information that we could use to advocate for a healthier St. John's River. But what we didn't count on is just creating a closer relationship, not only with the river itself, but everyone that lives along these stretches. We literally go by boat and we go by each stop at people's docks, and we're in the river behind people's homes to really take that data and also understand the St. John's. And we'll be back for year 4 starting in May of this year. One of the challenging things with this is we need lab space, we need people space, we have to have places to stay, and we need places to have these type of conversations. And that's something that the AmaraZee actually creates a venue and an opportunity to do more of this work going into the future as well. Pete Seeger is really the one that's kind of put this sort of advocacy / celebrating history in our music on the map. I don't know if you know Pete Seeger's history with the Hudson River, but in the Hudson River, he actually went to each community by boat and really connected all of those riverfront communities who cared about the Hudson. And he did it through music, through education. He does, his foundation still does this work now, even after his death. And before Pete Seeger passed away, Stetson Kennedy, who was, unfortunately, he passed away as well. But Stetson Kennedy was one of the early environmentalists for the St. John's River. He connected with Pete Seeger to get Pete Seeger to come to the St. John's to try to build that connection of people that care about this waterway together through Pete Seeger's music and his work. Unfortunately, both of them passed away before they were able to make this happen. But the good news is we're working with the Stetson Kennedy Foundation to help bring some of that energy and power through the words of Stetson Kennedy, the music of Pete Seeger, but also bring it forward to celebrate the musicians, the artists, the writers, the scientists, the historians of today. And with that, and we're doing that through a floating venue that has a great, rich history itself. And we hope to create a wonderful path forward. So we'll have a future that future generations can look back and say, thank goodness they did this work just like Pete Seeger did for the Hudson River. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the captain, Captain Mark Rinaman. I do not call him that at home, only out in public and on the ship. And he'll tell you more about this wonderful new amenity that we have in the St. John's River, how you can be part of it, and then we'll both answer any questions. But thank you for coming today, and I'll turn it over to the captain.
Thank you very much. Captain means you're the head maintenance guys, really how that works out. I want to go ahead and introduce you to the ship. She's built in 1996. It was designed from the keel up to be a theater performance barge. And they used this design for it's the English Thames sailing barge. Sorry about that. And the idea is that you could be in the river systems in Europe and then come across the channel and go into England. And they have these big lee boards on the side. And it's a flat bottom. It only takes about 3.5 feet. And and you put the lead oars down and to get you across the channel so that you can sail it. And so the reason that we use this design for the theater group was that you can get into almost any small town, 3.5 feet. It's easy, so it gives a lot of accessibility across the river in the waterways. So she's 100, just a little south of 100 tons from a regulatory standpoint, probably weighs about 155. The mast is 90 feet. The ship's 90 feet long, 22-foot wide, and sleeps 20. And when we build a show, we've done 2 shows in Jacksonville, and you basically, it takes about 6 weeks, and you bring in artists and set builders and lighting technicians and all that, and you build a show, and then they would go and tour for about 6 months. And this ship has taken tours all over the Great Loop, all over the United States, Canada. In 2014, we shipped it over to Hamburg and went through all the river systems in Europe. We brought it back to Texas, and it was up in Vancouver until about this time last year. And we weren't quite sure what to do with it as a nonprofit. And I was down here. There's 2 nonprofits, actually. There's a Canadian nonprofit and a U.S. nonprofit. The U.S. nonprofit actually owns the ship. And we were trying to figure out what to do with it. There was some discussion about just selling it up in Canada. And somehow it ended up down here. So showed up here, and it's about a 5-year plan to figure out how to drive it so we don't break things and run into bridges and stuff like that for the first year. And then we're past that part, so we're pretty safe. If you see the ship coming, don't worry, we're not going to knock it down. And now we're going to build the program. And let's just say it slides. Here we go. So this is down in the salon. It sleeps 20, but it's a tight fit in the cabins. The salon is designed to be the common room that keeps everybody kind of all the conflicts down and everybody's happy. So good galley, good cook, and a place to do your work. Here's another shot of that. And this is the sleeping quarters. So the top bunks, small people, but it works pretty well. And here we go. This is some of the shows. You can think it's kind of like Cirque du Soleil on a boat. Wow. And they have, this was a big lighting truss and scrims, and they use all the first world theater techniques and very interesting stuff. So that's one of the missions that we had with that ship. This is over in Italy, and just, as I said, we ended up going down through the Danube and came back up into Italy, and we loaded it up on a freighter. That's how we get back and forth across the big water, ocean going freighters. So this is the mission set. Primary one, as I said, we're just trying to make sure we know how to sail a ship safely and get it to where we need so we can operate. And we've been recruiting and training our crew. Over against the wall here, we got an Icelander, Odin. He's the first mate, and we'll have to meet him. He's an interesting fellow, and has been knows how to drive the ship pretty well at this point. So that's the primary, sort of mission over this last year, and it'll keep going. We're going to keep recruiting, keep developing captains, and just being able to drive it and maintain it. One of the things we've done one example of so far is the music and concert. That's that's a low-hanging fruit for us. We have a sound system, and we have a lot of onboard generators to be able to pull off the shows. The theater piece is going to be a little ways down the road because it's a lot of work, and I'm not a theater guy. So we have a slot if anybody wants to do that. So on the outreach side, we have a pretty substantial relationship with scouts. The idea is to bring in scouts, and they do Eagle Scout projects. There's Sea Scout units that come in and do campouts and training and build up their marine skills. The research piece, Lisa alluded to that. The ship can support, for instance, the submerged aquatic vegetation. I've got a project I'm working on. It's the sediment study for the St. John's River. There's an old one from the St. John's Water Management District did in '98, and we're going to work towards trying to update that and use the ship as the research vessel to make that happen. So this was what we're calling cultural port calls. This is the beginning of a series. Lisa was talking about the concert series. And the idea is, we're homeported in Jacksonville on the Trout River. The idea is to deploy down and, in this case, we're going to, our first one of the, going to be we tie up there at the Black City Dock, and we're going to sort of, we haven't picked which event. It's either going to be the Glue Club. So Bob Griffin, you know him. He's sort of the Black port captain. That's how we envision this happening. Is either one or two, or a group of people will be the champions for whatever port town that we come to, so they can work all the local issues. We we're just not, we don't know. So this is leading down through downtown Jacksonville. This is the first time we went through the bridges, and I can tell you, it was a little terrifying. And this is actually coming back. Maybe going down to the Black. And this is at the Black Dock this summer. City Dock down there. And we had Alani Aleski holds a acoustic jam every month. And they had this on the AmaraZee. It was the first real event that we've done since we got the ship down here from Vancouver. And it was excellent. And then right after this, Bob put together the video, and it was a very successful run. It was hot, 105 degrees. You guys are around the summer. It was tough. So the sails come in a big way. Very helpful. That's a beautiful shot there. So this is, I guess here we went down, we did a little recon. We brought while we were down into the summer, we took a little whaler and we drove through Dunn's Creek and all that just to see the feasibility about bringing the ship to Crescent Lake and Crescent City.
You can't bring them, you can't get the ship past Dunn's Creek Bridge.
Say again?
You can't get the ship past Dunn's Creek Bridge, there's power line down, so that thing's really long.
There's a little design, let me go back here, I got a hand.
They can drop it.
Yeah. So this is
Apologies.
Wait,
well, I tell you what, I'll just tell this one. So it's a tin sailing barge, and it was designed so that the mast could be lowered to get onto the bridges when they go into the, because they didn't have drawbridges and that sort of thing. And so it takes a bit of puff to get in there and letting it down is not that hard, but getting it back up, it's about a 15-ton mast, but we can get it down to 17 feet. So it's very flexible in terms of getting in. And as it stands, I think that bridge and currently that was one of the big tests going down to Palatka, is getting under the Shands Bridge, which I think is also 44 feet. So anyway, we have that, and of course you pointed out the power lines. That is something we definitely need to look at. But I'm pretty sure when we looked at it, we have enough room to get through without hitting the bridge or getting fried. So that's pretty much in a nutshell what the ship's about, the history of it. It was built in Kingston, Ontario in '96, and it was from the group at the time, the National Caravan Stage Company. They were going around in these big purpose-built wagons, and it was like a circus show, I suppose. It had Clydesdales and all that. It got to be too much work. And so this was how they were going to fix that. And they took them 4 years to build it. And it's been sailing and touring and doing shows. There's been about 25 or so unique opera show, like type shows, rock operas, and different types of theater productions that were done on the ship. And I think at this point, there's probably somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 people who have served on the ship. They're all over the world. When they went through Europe, they had a lot of folks there. And they're still supporters. They love the ship. They had a piece of their young lives spent there. And a lot of them grew up and they're running their own arts organizations and have lots of connections. Some of them didn't. When they show up, they want to be on the boat just to be on the boat. And that's, I guess, on the ship itself, that's, if you have any questions, I certainly
Did you
can.
end up with it? Did I miss that part?
So the ship was in Vancouver.
Right.
And Paul Kirby and Adrian Kilder are the creative group, creative couple that really drove this whole thing. And they kind of aged out. And what they did was they were like, they couldn't do this ship anymore. Their kids didn't want to mess with it. And so they downsized to like a 56-foot sailboat, and they're over in France now doing that. So their ability to operationalize their concepts and what they wanted to do was really startling and very impressive. And that's what kind of drew me to the whole thing. And so there's another ship if you're in France.
Tell them how you found them, how you got connected with them early on.
So I was doing, in the officer education program, you got to do some studies. I was taking the Combined Armed Services Staff School at the time. And I had to do a study. And I just got done with the hurricanes. And the idea was to use deployable infrastructure on barges to move what you need to go down and support, folks have had their houses blown away and all the devastation that happens with Hurricane Andrew was the one that sparked all this. And of course, the problem is it costs a ton of money and you never know whether it's going to work. And in that study, we kind of came up with the idea that you have dual use, where if you're supporting 10,000 people at a concert with a floating concert venue, maybe multiple barges, all that sort of thing. The only difference between that and supporting a bunch of people who lost their houses in their tents, there's not a lot. I mean, it's kind of the same scenario. And there's analogies for that where airframes, if the military needs airframes, we grab commercial airframes, there's a deal cut already to support that. And that was the idea. And this was I was doing research. There's different floating venues around the world. And these guys would come down the East Coast. And I said, hey, come on into Jacksonville. And they came in and we did a sort of a pilot scale test of all that. And then, somewhere along the line, that idea didn't materialize into, a new industry in Florida. But we became great friends and they needed some help down here. And I became that guy. So that's the long and the short of it. And to tell you the truth, this is still a demonstration project from my perspective. And I do think that concept is something from a development pattern, which is totally valid because you can bring it up to a piece of like a park downtown, whatever it is along the waterfront, and you temporarily modify the landscape to support more intense land use. And in this case, of course, it's theater, but you could do any number of uses. You could have a swimming pool and that sort of thing. And that's kind of one of the uses that we looked at. But here we are. We got a floating theater.
So what's maybe I think something that may be of interest to a lot of folks. What about the financing? How do you keep this moving forward? I mean, what?
So it's it's a foreign built boat. So there's lots of constraints on how this works. If you are a foreign built boat, you cannot be commercial. It has to be registered. It's a recreational boat. You can get a waiver for that. But if you become commercial, there's all kinds of very expensive additional inspections and all this other stuff that wouldn't support, it would kill this project. And so we haven't done that waiver piece. The other side of it is if you're going to charge passengers for hire, that sort of thing, you have to have a captain's license. And for this ship, you have to have a 100-ton captain's license to drive it. Matter of fact, that's one of the selling points to the scouts is that you can get sea time on this ship, although it is the certificate documentation on it is as a recreational boat. You can get the sea time that'll count towards 100-ton captain's license. And so I don't know if I didn't answer your question. I think I just told you how we can't do it. So basically, we get sponsors to do if we're going to do a project. there's I guess the third thing was the insurance, but there's a line between the dock and the boat where the insurance, doesn't really let anybody on the boat unless they're a member. And however, if we come in and do a concert or theater production or whatever that might be, sometimes we'll have meetings on there. The audience will sit on the shore and the production's done from the deck of the ship. So by combining your waterfront with this capital asset, you just created a first world theater venue or performance. And that's where the sponsorship comes from. And the sponsors can charge and all that sort of thing because they, that line there, the demarc between the ship and the shore.
So when we spoke this past summer, which I think was in June, you, of course, vessels of it like this, there's maintenance. It's constant. It never ends. And so you were working on getting a couple things ship shape. Are you to the point now where you can go out and maybe do one of these shows? I mean, you were talking about the Blue Crab Festival.
Yeah, we're fully, capable of moving it downrange and using it as a venue at this point. We had some, we're still exploring, there's different things that happen that.
But when you do it, okay, so let's take Black as an example. So let's just say, you would like to do a show there, whatever. It could be a band, it might be a small theater show, but you have to have some interaction with the city.
Yeah. So what we've done, so that's a great example. We have a grant. We went through the tourist development grant and got a grant to help us come down to Palatka. And it's going to be, what's left to select is which one of these festivals that we're going to support. And ultimately what it does is, in this case, when we tie it up to the city dock, it kind of activates that area of the waterfront, which is normally not really, obviously when they're doing the bass or the tournaments and stuff like that, there's a lot of activity. But when they have the festivals, they're generally closer to the bridge and that space there. And this will even that out and provide a unique venue
Very cool.
for all that. And so that's part of the funding, it's grants, but it's also just sponsorships from different folks. We've got some donor advised funds that are, helping us, keep the maintenance and all that squared away. And yeah,
So,
volunteer wages.
so what's it like to drive it? How does it drive? Compare it to automobiles. I mean, is it like a Corvette or is it like a Volkswagen bus or a semi truck or what?
It's Oden will be able to tell you this. He just started this last weekend.
What's the power of that?
It only has it has twin 120 perkins. And so the whole speed's about 7 knots. And because of the flat bottom, it goes
Doesn't steer.
wherever she wants, and you can have to like. And we do put the lee boards down when we're motoring to kind
And
of
explain it.
track.
Explain what a lee board is.
Oh, sorry. So when it's sailing, the ship is sailing, say, across the channel. The sails would be, you have a windward side and you have a leeward side. And you put the leeward, there's 2 boards. So whichever one's on the leeward side, you put down. So when the wind's going against it, it doesn't just skip across the top of the water. And so it acts like the keel on a sailboat. It is the keel on this sailboat. And it sails not really, it's not the most nuanced, it's
When I interviewed you for that YouTube, your quote was something to the effect the first time you took it out, you were terrified.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Just driving.
Well, wait a minute. You also had another smaller vessel, kind of like acted like a tugboat. Am I putting it right? Am I phrasing it?
That was sort of a crutch. We had an 18-foot wheel that was strapped to the side just in case.
It's distracted.
the end
Kind of push it
something
around.
out. And it's a good way to bail out, I guess, is the last part. But we've been going out without the wheels, which is sort of the training wheels now. So that's an indication. But we do go on the long trips with it because it does help us get back and forth
Gotcha.
from there. But yes, it's the ship's just an extension of your body and it's 155 tons and you got to communicate and it's really, when you're using the rudder, it's very physical and a lot of, people take a while, it takes a little while for people to dial it in because it's constantly swinging. And sometimes they just don't get it, and it's sideways. The new folks always have a lot of room, a lot of white spot in the river.
I think you have a quite, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
You steer with the two engines,
So it does have twin screws,
right?
but these are 30, 40-year-old diesels, and they only go, they're designed to run at about 1,700 RPMs.
Right.
And what we do this comes from the culture of the National Carrying Stage Company, very constrained, austere financially and all that. So they're very conservative about how we drive it, so you don't break anything because it's a deal killer. It stops the show and it's expensive and all that. So basically, the procedure is, we use the sticks when we're docking, and otherwise you take it up to 1,700 and you use the rudder. And the rudder's got this big wheel, and you got to get used to, moving it, and it doesn't pay attention to you for at least 30 or 40 seconds. And you got to get attention. This weekend is the first time we've been on a wheel, and got to get attention. Yes, sir.
Part of your mission is research.
Yes, sir.
And I know you're a part of River Keepers. What can you tell us about eelgrass?
Well, there's a line between us. This one is the eelgrass.
Yeah, give me she's the.
I'm the support guy, as you might imagine.
Yes, so the eelgrass in the St. John's is something we've been monitoring. We've been monitoring all the state work for about 15 years because we've been watching the saltwater intrusion come further inland, killing eelgrass.
No.
Pretty much all in Duval County as well as North St. John's and Clay County. After Hurricane Irma came through, it wiped out grasses for 100 miles inland. And that has happened before with hurricanes, but unfortunately, it didn't come back. Previous hurricanes, it came back after a couple of years, the water cleared up, it kind of normalized. It's still not back. And so we launched a program in 2023 where we're monitoring 80 miles of the St. John's. And your son actually came out and did some work with us. Commissioner Newbold came out and did some of the work with us in Georgetown. But looking at the grasses to see what we can find, we have 14 different spots that we go and do the research. We look and see if grass is there. The good news, the grass is there. It's surviving. The bad news, it's only about 2 inches tall. And what we're seeing is the grass growth has slowed down due to multiple problems in the river we need to fix. And it's growing so slowly that the grazers, everything that eat it, are cutting it too short and it's not growing fast enough.
Explain what a plot is.
Yes.
Explain how you grow it, what it looks like.
So we have 14 different sites that we were monitoring without any sort of just natural. So it had no sort of protection. The state agency started putting in these protective enclosures that are fences. Not as a solution, but as research to see if you protect the grasses from grazers, can they grow? And the good news, they can grow. Right now in Cooley Cove and just north of Shands Bridge, we're seeing grass that's as tall as historic levels. So the good news, the grass can grow. The bad news, it's inside these protected plots or enclosures. And so we've got to figure out a way to get the grass to grow more quickly so it can outpace all of the hungry wildlife that's wanting to eat it. We don't think that there's more wildlife. There's no indication there's more turtles or there's more manatees or there's more of these wildlife that eat them. We just think that multiple water quality stressors in the St. John's are stressing these grasses so they're not growing fast enough. The water level's higher than it used to be before Irma. And when you have a black water river and the water level's higher, it blocks more light into the St. John's. And that's a big problem too, because it needs more light. We're seeing a lot of areas where the river, instead of looking like iced tea, like it's supposed to look, we're seeing it look more like coffee. And when it looks like coffee, the light can't get down. That's due to multiple factors. So we're working with multiple agencies trying to get holistic approach to reduce all of the stress on the St. John's, but it's going to take all of us pulling in the same direction to do so. But the good news, it can survive. We're seeing some good evidence of that. Bad news is we just need to give it a boost somehow.
Thank you.
But thank you, sir, for the question.
Great answer.
Well, thank you. We'll be back out there and doing more of our research in May, and we're gonna have we're gonna have roundtable discussions about eelgrass. And we'd love to come back here. I know we're gonna do one in Georgetown and Black as well. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, could you introduce Odin and tell us a little bit about where he's from and how he came to be here?
Sure. Odin, do you want to come up or you want me to just introduce you? So what's the name of the, actually let Mark do it, but Odin is new to the group and he's part of this great program that connects projects like this to people with skill sets like Odin's. And I'll let Mark introduce him.
So this is Odin Morgan. He's from Iceland. He told me the town, but I can't even say it. So.
Oh, thank you.
Rick, okay, well, that's not what I heard the last time. Anyway, there you go. That's where we were. So there's a program called World Packers, and there's a few different ones around. And I recognized a while back that, everybody's got jobs, and it's hard to get the continuity of for people to work on the boat and get trained properly. And so that's kind of what this helps to do. Odin's going to be here for at least 6 weeks, I think. And then we're training him up and how it works and maintenance and et cetera, and he'll become crew for the AmaraZee. He already is, and wherever he's at in the world, when we do a look, the idea is that you're planning a mission and doing a mission. So it's always going to be that cycle. And we'll put out the word to whoever's trained up, and they'll be crewing for that particular mission. And by the way, you're invited. We're still recruiting, and for any of these, whenever we move from one town to the next, the ship. I've had some 100-ton captains do the calculation and all that. We can put 68 folks on the deck without Coast Guard getting upset with us. And when we're docked, it's just the fire code guys take over. But there'll be opportunities to portage between. As we build this program up between river towns and between Sanford and Mayport.
Do you see the vessel leaving the St. John's River?
Yep, we've got insurance for that. That's about as far as I've gone. We can go coastal waters, Florida, up to Charleston, and the Bahamas. And Bahamas is a stretch, but we'll see how that works.
In summer.
Yeah, I'm actually I just bought a big chain trying to figure out how the hurricane chain would work on this. So I've learned a lot being an Army guy. I don't know that much about all that stuff. The anchors seem pretty straightforward. You just throw it on a rope, throw it out there, but a lot more science to it. And so we're policing up all the stuff we need to be able to go downrange into the Keys and Bahamas with the expectation that we can anchor if we have a hurricane or something like that. We expect something to be left in the storm. So yes.
The picture that you guys showed with the set, like set dressing, the scrim and all that, that's you build all that when you arrive someplace and then you check it down. Is that how that all works? Joe, that's that picture.
So that when there's a truss up there, which is about 5 tons of stuff, and it's 12 by 26, and it's almost like it's a totally separate second deck, and we have that. It was on the ship when we brought it down here, but we just had to get it off. And but while we were touring, that is what we just kind of leave it up there. And the scrim, we pulled down stuff that would be in the way of navigation or needed to be protected from the sun, but they would stay up. You build a show and it pretty much stays that way through the movements.
And I just want to make the picture. So all of that's on the ship itself. So the stage, the boat becomes the stage, and then everybody sits on the bank. So we can take this show anywhere there's a place for people to sit on the bank. There's a couple in Jacksonville, they're gonna get married on the boat, so they're looking for a place that all of their guests can sit on the shoreline. And, we've talked about looking at like with the William Bartram Society, getting Sam Carr out on there giving talks, because you can actually sit on the boat when it's docked. Linda Kreider has a play written about Bartram's Travelers. So that's the first play we'd like to do. It's very local. And it has local characters as well as authors on that. And then as Mark said, it only goes at 7 knots. So it's really a wonderful way to go slowly and see the river and to have speakers on this huge, beautiful deck. I think there's a picture just so you can really see the magnitude of, this area that you can have tons of people on when it's docked as well as when it's underway. So just exciting opportunity.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
How do we keep track of your events, where you're gonna be?
So, I will tell you that, that is a weakness so far. We've been really just trying to kind of, we've had a crew of folks that we focus on a core to be able to learn how to drive it and be able to do what we say we can do. And I kind of held off on that. I wanted to make sure that we could, if we say we're going to be somewhere and do a show, that we can get there and do it. And about this time last year, I couldn't have done it. So we're now there. We're starting to put together the social media piece and all that. So we'll get that out to you one way or the other.
How about this? He'll get it to me, I'll get it to BJ, and he'll get it out to the world, to everybody.
There you go.
That'll work.
There you go.
That'll work.
And you'll see the show. You'll see the ship coming.
Is there a mizzen mast on that? What is that, the balcony?
That's a mizzen mast.
It is.
Yep. So it's a straight rig. So what you got is the main mast goes up, and the main mast, right now it's at 57 feet. It has a top mast that'll take it up to 90. And then this boom here, it's a straight boom. Obviously, it holds the sails and all that, but it's also a crane. And that's what we use to move a lot of the, historically, that's how they would use it to load the ship and unload the ship. And the one thing we haven't done that they used to do is they take it right up on the beach at high tide and unload it, after the tide went out, and then load it back up.
This is kind of like over in England, the Thames River.
That's right.
Because
That's right.
this was a cargo barge. I mean,
Yeah.
they would haul cargo with it.
That's
That
correct.
boom. Okay.
And this is built like the cargo ship. It has the 4 halves that'll come out, big cargo hold.
Is there a topsail also?
Yeah, I think there's 5 sails, and you're in an area that I'm totally unqualified. I'm barely able to deal with the diesels and all that, but yes, there's a topsail. Matter of fact, the topsail was designed, when you're in London, it was to get it up high enough where you catch the wind that wouldn't be blocked by the bridges and stuff like that. And they had these guys that would sit on the bridges and wait. They're called hufflers, and they would jump on the boat and roll the mast down and roll it back up. That's how they made a living. So, and it's hard living. I'll tell you. Yes, ma'am.
In a perfect world, Mark, what is your vision for the boat?
So it's got, you saw that mission set back there, and the 5-year plan ends up with me giving the keys to either, my cohort of kids. I have 2 boys. This is a little bit of the reason why I'm involved with it. But I want to get this group of folks that's, not just kids, but everybody that can be qualified to drive it and be comfortable driving it, and me being comfortable with them driving it. And so that it becomes truly its own, it's going to be the tall ship for the St. Johns River. That's the way I see it. And with all those uses, and it's got all this flexibility to be able to reach in the tributaries, and really, that's what used to happen. It used to be all the transportation back and forth, and this sort of pays homage to that, and gives people the opportunity to travel that way and see how that works.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, okay.
Carol, do you have a question, Carol?
Oh, well,
Yes.
I just was gonna ask, and it's kind of part of the vision thing that you said you came down to Dunns Creek and all to see. And is that in the future to come to Crescent City docks at some point?
While we're here. So,
That's what I'm hoping.
yeah. No, we, it's, maybe 20 miles to Palatka. So we were, while we were down there, we were looking at the feasibility of where we could go. And of course, Crescent City, it's a little complex, but we can weave it in here and make that happen. And so that's kind of that's what we've been doing. And we'll keep doing that. There's places that, we'll find out whether we can pull that off. So. All right.
Well, thank you, Mark.
I want to say one thing that my wife has given me, our 20 years or so married, is, I grew up in Jacksonville on St. John's, and you take it for granted, and to be able to see it through her eyes has been a very good
Yeah, for women.
experience.
To make this successful, you have to have the local conduit. What's made it so workable in Palatka said Bob Griffin, who lives on the river right there, and helped him make all the introductions. And I want to thank Bob Lee for doing that with us. And yes, we want to come to Crescent City, but it's going to take us partnering with you all to make sure we're celebrating all the authentic, wonderful things about this connection to the waterway. So thank y'all for having us here today. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Bob, for the introduction. Good to see you all. Thanks so much.